What happens if your eyes start looking left, hand move to right, legs forget to stand and your heart beats whenever it feels like it? You fall, you freeze. But that's because without control and coordination, our body becomes a battlefield of random signals, doing random things at random time. And nature, random means falling apart. You see, our body isn't just bones, muscles, and blood. It also has a command and control system so fast and so smart that by the time you think about reacting, it's already done. Like when you touch something hot, your hand snaps back. Something comes near you, your eyes blink. You hear a name called in a crowd, your ears zero in. And that's control and coordination in action. Plants don't have a brain, right? But they still respond. Like how does a touch me not actually knows that it has been touched? Well, most of the time, these topics are taught in the school like a boring list. Brain, spinal cord, nerves, hormone. Well, if control and coordination has ever confused you, don't worry, because today I will explain it like a story of something that happens every day inside you, of something that you will never forget. Hi, I'm Kaushik, and I welcome you to Atoms to Algebra. Okay, if I got your attention now, let's start. Imagine if somebody throws a piece of chalk at you. Now, do you start making a list in your mind? Like what's the speed of the chalk or angle? Now, should I blink? Of course not, right? You just blink instantly and automatically. And that's control and coordination. It helps sensing what's happening around us, then decide and process what to do about it, and then create a proper response. So, the control and coordination is the process by which the organs and the systems of living organism work together systematically to create balance and to create a proper response to the environmental changes. But before any control can happen, there must be a trigger, and that trigger is called stimulus. Well, a stimuli or stimulus is any environmental changes that can create a response in living organism or make living organism react. We react to various environmental factors, or we can say living organism react to various environmental changes like heat, light, sound, taste, smell, pain, touch, even the force of gravity. And the response, it's the action that body takes, like jumping in fear, moving your hand, blinking your eyes. These are all responses. Remember, the core of control and coordination chapter is stimuli and or stimulus and response. The whole chapter is built on this. Let's look at some examples and understand. In the first case scenario, we have a person touching a hot surface. Now, whenever you touch something hot and you don't know it's hot, okay? So before knowing it's hot, if you touch it, your hand just snap back. And that's a reflex action that we're going to learn later on. Now, can you guess the stimulus here? Yes, it's heat. And the response? Moving your hand. And we can say hands and pulls back in this case. In the second case, we have a dog and a person running. This is funny, right? It happened with all of us when we were small. Now, whenever you hear a dog bark loudly behind you, suddenly you start running. And the stimulus here is sound. And the response, running. Don't say you didn't do it or it did not happen with you. It happened with all of us. And the next one, you see a potted plant kept near a window slowly bends towards the light. Now the stimulus here, yes, it's light. And the response, stem bending. Even a single cell organism like amoeba is aware of its surrounding and create a proper response. You see, in this case, the amoeba senses food particle and forms pseudopodia to engulf the food. The response is engulfing food. So, we have learned what is stimuli and what is response. But how does the body pick up these stimulants? Or how does the body create a response? Before we understand them, we have to ask a question that how does the body know what's happening around it? How do you feel pain when you step on a sharp pain? Or how do your eyes know where to look and ears know to pick up your favorite ringtone or favorite song? Well, the answer to this question, my friend, is receptor. Receptors are like biological sensors of our body. Imagine yourself walking in a smart home. Now, as you walk in, the lights turn on. The AC starts if it gets hot. Even the doorbell rings, when somebody arrives. Now, how does all of it happen? Now, you see, the smart home has sensors that can detect sound, temperature, we can say heat and cold, even motion. Now, our body similarly has a sensor type of cell that we know as receptors. Receptors are cells that are specialized to detect a particular stimulus like heat, sound, smell, taste, pain, light. Our eyes have receptors, and these receptor cells are present in retina, and they are known as photoreceptors. Let's understand the different type of receptors present in our sense organ. Now, I forgot to mention this that the receptor cells are mostly present in our sense organ. But not only that, they are also present inside our body, like in blood vessels, to detect oxygen level and sugar level or the blood pressure. Now, let's go through all the receptors present in our sense organ and understand what they detect and what they are called. Now, we have already learned that the photoreceptors present in eyes detect light. The phonoreceptors present in the ears detect sound, whereas the olfactory receptors present in our nose detect the smell, and the gustatory receptor present in the tongue detect various tastes. Now, the skin has the receptors for heat, for pain and pressure. Now, the receptors present in the skin that detect heat is known as, or heat or cold temperature is known as thermoreceptor. Now, the receptors that detect touch and pressure is known as mechanoreceptor. And the receptor that detect pain is known as nociceptor. Okay. Now that we understood that what the receptors do and what role they play in our body, now remember one thing. The receptors always detect the stimulus. We receive a variety of information from our surrounding through our sense organ, and the receptor cell present in the sense organ pick up this information about the stimulus and pass it to brain and spinal cord in the form of nervous impulse. But here comes a question. Now you see, to pass the information, we need something, a medium, right? We don't have wires like machine do, but we have something even better. We have a network made of nerves and chemicals known as the nervous system and endocrine system. Let's break it down. Now remember, the coordination in animal takes place through two systems, the nervous system and the endocrine system. The nervous system is known as, the nervous system is made up of brain, then this spinal cord, and nerves. We can see various nerves here. Whereas the endocrine system has a group of endocrine glands. These endocrine glands secrete various hormones in our body. You can see the glands, right? We will definitely get back to the endocrine system. Let's just stick with this nervous system for now and understand why it is so important. You see, the nervous system regulates involuntary actions. These are the actions that we do without our active thinking. That means it happens automatically. Let me give you some example. Your heart keeps beating, your lungs keep breathing, your stomach keeps digesting food, even when you are asleep. You see, these are all running at the background and you're not actively controlling them. These are involuntary action and it is controlled by our nervous system. Not only that, it also controls the voluntary muscular activities. The activities like writing, running, playing, deciding what to wear and when to wear it. These are all voluntary actions. Okay. Now, it also enables us to remember, think, reason, like solving a math problem, remembering your friend's birthday. Okay. Now, the last one. It also controls our reflexes, like moving your hand back when you touch something hot, or moving your leg when you step on a sharp pin, or blinking your eyes, jumping in fear. All these reflexes are controlled by our nervous system. Now that we know what the nervous system does and why it is so important, let's zoom in and understand what it's made up of. Okay? The nervous system is made up of the neurons. Our nervous system is made up of special cells called neurons. The neurons are the largest cells of our body. Sometimes they can be up to 1 meter long. Think about a nerve signal needing to send from your lower back all the way down to your big toe. That requires a long cell, right? The neuron, like any other animal cell, has a cell body. It also contains a nucleus. The cell body contains nucleus. But you see, the cell body also has fibers stretching out of it. And the short fibers are known as dendrites. Whereas the longest fiber, the long fiber, is known as axon. Now, the axon at the end branch off into nerve ending. Now, the axon has an insulating cover or sheath known as myelin sheath. The myelin sheath is made up of protein and fat, remember. Now, the neurons, what do they carry actually? The neurons carry nervous impulse. You see, just like you can't send message in WhatsApp without internet, our brain or spinal cord can receive or send command without neurons. The neurons carry the information about stimulus to the brain and spinal cord. Not only that, they also carry the command from brain and spinal cord to our muscles and gland for response. Now, the thing that we have to remember is that the nerve impulse always start traveling from dendrite towards the cell body and down from axon and reach ultimately the nerve ending. So I'm going to write it down here. So the nerve impulse travel from dendrites to cell body, then axon, and ultimately reach nerve ending. Remember that. This is very important. Now, so the nerve impulses are carried by neuron. That means the neurons are just like the courier service, speedy courier service of our body. And just like courier service has pickup guys, you can see here in the picture, pickup guys and delivery guys, and also people in the middle who process that. We can call them middleman. Similarly, the neurons in our body also are of three types. Let's write them down. The first type of neuron is sensory neuron, also known as efferent neuron. The next is motor neuron, also known as efferent neuron. Connecting both of them is relay neuron, just like the middleman connecting pickup guys and delivery guys. Relay neuron or interneuron. So the relay neurons are also known as interneurons. Now we have to understand what the sensory neuron carry and towards which direction. Obviously they carry nerve impulse, and what the motor neuron carry, they also carry nerve impulse, but here is a difference. The sensory neuron carry information about stimulus towards brain and spinal cord. Remember, the sensory neuron carry information about stimulus. So that I'm going to write here. The stimulus, information about stimulus is carried by the sensory neuron towards brain or spinal cord. And motor neuron carry instruction from brain and spinal cord. So the brain and or spinal cord send instruction through motor neuron towards our muscles or glands, which are also known as effector by the way. So you have to understand this is very important. Clear? So the direction of impulse through sensory neuron is from stimulus, means from our sense organ or from any part of the body which can detect stimulus. From stimulus, the information about stimulus is picked up by the sensory neuron, and that information is sent to the brain and spinal cord to be processed. Now, once the brain processes this information about the stimulus and creates a response, now this command for the response is now carried by the motor neuron towards our muscles and gland. Then what the relay neuron do? The relay neuron is present mainly in brain and spinal cord, which connects, it mainly connects the sensory neuron with the motor neuron. Not only that, they are also involved in coordinating complex responses like reflexes. Okay, now that we have understood the neuron, let's learn how impulses actually travel from neuron to neuron. So how does the nerve impulse actually travel from neuron to neuron in your body? Well, the answer lies in an elegant combination of electricity and chemistry. Let's break it down step by step. Suppose you touch something hot. It can be any hot surface, right? Now, once you touch something hot, the thermoreceptors present in your skin picks up the stimulus. Okay? And in them a chemical reaction starts. And that chemical reaction creates tiny electrical impulses or nerve impulse in the dendrite of sensory neuron. Now once the nerve impulse is created, this nerve impulse moves from dendrite to the cell body and from cell body along the axon and reaches nerve ending. But here's a twist. There is a microscopic gap between neurons, and this gap is known as synapse. Now the electric impulses cannot cross this gap, so your body plays a clever trick. You see, once the nerve impulses reaches the nerve ending, let's give this neuron as a new name, neuron A, and this is neuron B. So once the nerve impulses reach the nerve ending, this area, the nerve ending releases chemicals known as neurotransmitters. You can see here too, the neurotransmitters. Now, once the neurotransmitter cross the synaptic gap and get to the next neuron's dendrite, guess what? It creates similar electrical impulses in the neuron B. Now, this electrical impulse again will move through the cell body and again along the axon like electricity passing through the wire, and again will reach the nerve ending, and here again it will release neurotransmitter in the synaptic gap, and which the neurotransmitters will again go to the next neuron and repeat the same process. So what we have learned here is that the nerve impulse always move from dendrite to cell body, then axon, then synapse, and repeat the same process. That means this is the way, or in that way, the neurons from neuron to neuron, the electrical impulses will move and ultimately reach your brain or spinal cord. Now, once the brain and spinal cord process this information and create the appropriate response, and the command for the response now will again move through motor neurons from neuron to neuron and ultimately reach your muscles or glands. Now, the motor neurons axon terminal or nerve ending is connected with muscle fibers. Now, the point at which they connect is known as neuromuscular junction. Remember that. That means the command from brain or spinal cord will pass from the axon terminal of motor neuron to the muscle fibers and cause the muscle to contract and produce a response. So we have learned the synapse and we have also learned the neuromuscular junction. And by the way, I have already said, I guess, that the muscles and glands of our body is used to produce response. And that's why they are also known as effectors. They create the effect of the stimulus. Okay, now that we have learned the process how nerve impulses move from neuron to neuron through synapse, I want to tell you another thing that is very important. You see, the neurotransmitters are only released from the axon terminal or nerve ending, not from dendrite. And what it does actually, it creates a one-way gate in your body. You know why the signals in our body don't go haywire? Because of this. You see, the neurotransmitters are released from the axon, not from the dendrite. So nerve impulses can only move from axon terminal to the dendrite of next neuron only in one direction. Okay, now that we have understood neurons and how nerve impulse move from neuron to neuron, let's level up and learn about nerves. What are nerves? Well, the nerves are a bundle of many neurons working together. You can think of it this way. A neuron is like a wire, whereas a nerve is like a cable made up of many wires bundled together. It's very easy to understand. You see, the neuron, if you think a neuron like a wire and nerve as a cable, you can easily understand this that the nerve is a bundle made up of many neurons. Now, our body has three types of nerves based on from where they come out, or where they originate and what they control. You see, the nerves that come out from the brain or connected with the brain is known as cranial nerves. And we have 12 pairs of cranial nerves in our body. These nerves mainly control the head and face area. Whereas the nerves that branch out from the spinal cord, the spinal cord is known as spinal nerve. There are 31 pairs of spinal nerve in our body. They are mostly connected to everywhere, your hand, fingers, legs, toes, muscles, skin, the chest, back, everywhere. Now we have a third kind of nerve which is known as, let's write here, visceral nerve. These nerves are connected to your internal organs like heart, stomach, intestine, lungs. Now, here's what students often miss. No matter cranial, spinal, or visual nerve, all the nerves functionally are three types: the sensory nerve, the motor nerve, and mixed nerve. The sensory nerve carry messages to the brain or spinal cord about stimulus, whereas the motor nerves carry command from the brain and spinal cord to our muscles or gland called effectors, whereas the mixed nerve carry message both ways. Understood? Okay, now that we have understood neuron and nerves, let's zoom out a bit and look at the nervous system as a whole. The nervous system is divided into two major parts: the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system has brain and spinal cord, whereas the peripheral nervous system, okay, this is the central nervous system, this is the spinal cord, okay. The peripheral nervous system contains all the nerves of our body, all the nerves that come out of the brain, spinal cord, and reach your hand, legs, muscles, skin, everywhere. So the central nervous system has brain and spinal cord, and all the nerves of our body make the peripheral nervous system. Now the peripheral nervous system is further subdivided into autonomic nervous system and voluntary nervous system, which is also known as somatic nervous system, by the way. Now let's understand autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system controls the activities of our internal organs automatically without our thinking. Activities like heartbeat, then digestion, breathing, sweating, etc. These are the activities that are not under our conscious control. Now, the autonomic nervous system is further divided into sympathetic system and parasympathetic system. Now, the sympathetic system activates when you are in the state of fight or flight. Let me explain. It activates when you are under stress or excited. Okay. What it does actually, it increases your breathing, your heartbeat, and also the blood flow to your muscles. Whereas the parasympathetic system activates when you are relaxed or sleeping. What it does, it calms down the body, it slows down your heartbeat and helps in digestion. Okay, now we have understood autonomic nervous system. Now let's look into the voluntary nervous system or somatic nervous system. The voluntary nervous system controls the voluntary actions, the actions that require active thinking, or the actions that are under control of our brain, such as writing, walking, running, dancing, etc. Okay, let's understand with the help of one example. Now, this is an example, or this is a situation that we all have been through in school, especially. Now, suppose your teacher asks you a question in the class. Now, if you know the answer, what do you do? First, you hear the question, then decide what to answer, then you raise hand. Now, this action, raising hand, is not a reflex, it's a voluntary action because first you hear the question, then you process this question in your mind, and if you know the answer, then you decide. You think and then decide to raise your hand. And this is the example of voluntary action. Okay, now that we have understood the parts of our nervous system, let's understand and focus in the central nervous system. Okay. Now, central nervous systems is mainly composed of brain and spinal cord. So let's understand spinal cord first. Spinal cord, the term that you heard 100 times, but still don't know what it does. So let's clear it out. The spinal cord starts at the lower region of the brain, at the medulla region, and goes all the way down to your lower back through your backbone, also known as vertebral column. You see this stack of bones? These are vertebral column or your backbone. The spinal cord runs through it like a refill running through a pen case. You can think the refill as a spinal cord and the pen case as your backbone. Now, the spinal cord has branches of nerves stretching out of it and spread throughout your body that we have already learned. That the spinal nerves there are 31 pairs of spinal nerves connected to your hand, legs, chest, back, everywhere. Now, the spinal cord acts as a superhighway of message. How? You can think the spinal cord as a USB cable plugged inside your brain, sending data constantly. Let me explain. The brain sends information or instruction to the rest of the body through spinal cord, and it also receives signals through spinal cord from all of the body. Clear? So, if you are walking or talking or eating or feeling cold or raising hand, remember information about all these activities are always passing through the spinal cord. Clear? So not only that, the spinal cord also acts as a rapid response center. Whenever you are in danger or in emergency situation, like if you step on a sharp pin or touch a hot object, your body automatically produces reflexes, right? And these automatic responses are controlled by spinal cord. And this automatic response are known as reflex action. So what a reflex action is and how it happens, let's understand it step by step. There's a saying that in an emergency situation, speed matters the most than thinking. And it is so true. You see, in a dangerous situation, the body needs to act very fast. There is not enough time for thinking. Let me give you an example. Suppose you walk in the kitchen and you touch something very hot without knowing it's hot. What happens next? Your hand snaps back instantly, automatically, without even you thinking about it. You don't decide, it just happens. And this is what reflex action is. It is an automatic, quick, and involuntary response to a stimulus without conscious thinking. There are other examples of reflex actions. Let me give you some example. The sneezing when something enters your nose, or blinking when something comes flying at you suddenly, or coughing, or hopping on one leg when you step on a sharp pin. These are all example of reflex action. Now, let's understand how nerve impulses move during a reflex action. And we're going to stick with the example of you touching the hot object, all right? Now, before we start, just remember this red line is the sensory neuron and the blue line you see in the figure is the motor neurons, okay? So, whenever you touch something really hot, the thermoreceptors present in your skin pick up the stimulus and they create a chemical reaction through which they create a nerve impulse. Now they pass this nerve impulse to the sensory neuron. Now the sensory neuron carry this the impulse which is information about the stimulus all the way to the spinal cord. And here the information or the impulse is passed to the relay neuron. Now the spinal cord creates an automatic response, a rapid response. And that response or the command in the form of nervous impulse travel through this blue line, the motor neuron, and ultimately reach your effectors, which are muscles. Okay, in this case, muscles. Once the nerve impulse reaches the muscle contract. And the result is your hand pulls away instantly. And this is how the reflex action takes place. Now, let's understand one more time through this flow chart. Okay. Now you see, once you touch something hot, the stimulus is heat. Now the heat stimulus is picked up by the thermoreceptors, which generate the nervous impulse about the stimulus, and this information in the form of nervous impulse travel through the sensory neuron and reach the spinal cord. Now the spinal cord creates a response, okay, and the instruction for the response now pass through the motor neuron, and they ultimately reach the effectors, which are your muscles of the hand. And once the impulse reaches the muscles, it contracts, and the result is response. Your hand pulled away, gets pulled away. Now, once this happens, it happens very fast, less than a second. But you see, this all thing is controlled, all this reflex action is controlled by the spinal cord. But does the brain find out about it? Yes. Once you touch something hot, you feel the pain and you move your hand back, then you realize what happened. That means the information about all this event also passes to the brain for learning. So that you now know that if you touch something really hot, your hand might get burned. Okay, you may feel pain. Okay. Now one more thing. The pathway taken by the nerve impulse du- during this reflex action, the pathway taken by nerve during reflex action is known as reflex arc. Remember that. Is known as reflex arc. Okay. One more thing you have to remember that the reflex actions are the way of your body protection. The spinal cord's way of protecting your body. Because in an emergency situation or any dangerous situation, even 0.1 second delay can cause serious injuries. So remember, the reflex actions are your body's way of protecting you. It happens very fast, instantly. Okay? Okay, now it's time for the main event, the human brain. Your brain looks like a wrinkled walnut, right? And it weighs only about 1.3 to 1.4 kilogram. But you know what? It uses 20% of your body's energy. That means, as compared to your body's total mass, the mass of the brain is very less, but it uses nearly 20% of your body's total energy. That means the brain is metabolically very active. Okay? Now, let me ask you one question here. If you had the world's most powerful supercomputer, would you keep it lying around without any protection? Of course not, right? And your brain is that powerful. So the nature gives it three layers of protection. The first is the cranium, the skull, okay? Cranium, the bony helmet that protects your brain. The next is you see these three layers. These layers are known as meninges. It's wrapped around the brain like a bubble wrap. Not only that, your brain actually floats in a special fluid, and that fluid is known as, okay, I'm going to write here, okay, cerebrospinal fluid, or CSF in short. This fluid keeps the brain uh, or makes the brain shock-proof. It protects the brain from certain jerks and movements. So the brain is protected by cranium, which is skull, meninges, which are the three layers wrapping around the brain, and a special fluid known as cerebrospinal fluid. By the way, this cerebrospinal fluid also flows in your backbone. It keeps the spinal cord shock protected. Okay. Now, let's really open our mind or open our brain and understand the parts of brain and what are their roles. Okay? The human brain it has three main regions. You can say the forebrain, midbrain, and the hindbrain. Let's find out. Okay. The top and front part of your brain is your forebrain. It includes cerebrum and olfactory lobes. The olfactory lobes are present in this region, okay, below the cerebrum. Now, let's understand what the cerebrum does. The cerebrum controls your intelligence, memory. It is the part that plays a role in reasoning. Then it controls voluntary movements and sense perception. That means this is the part that you use to solve a math problem, remember your best friend's birthday, or even to get angry. Okay, this is the part that you use to memorize, to think, to understand. And this is the part that you use for voluntary movements like writing, running, jumping, or saying or thinking about what to say next. Okay. Not only that, your brain receives variety of information from the sense organ, from our sense organ, eyes, nose, ears, skin, tongue, right? And the cerebrum process all this information. That means whenever you touch, smell, eat, or feel anything, the cerebrum is processing it. Clear? Okay. Next is olfactory lobe. Remember the forebrain includes the cerebrum and olfactory lobes. The olfactory lobes located below the cerebrum, it controls your sense of smell. That means whenever you smell something, this is the part that identifies it. Okay. So have you ever smelled uh, freshly cooked popcorn and felt hungry? Then this is the olfactory lobe in action. Remember, it helps to identify different smells of perfume, different smells of flour, or different smells of freshly cooked food by your mother. Okay. Next is midbrain. Located at the center of the brain is midbrain. The midbrain mainly controls the reflexes of eyes and ears. I wrote eye two times. Ears. Okay. Let me explain. This is the part that controls the pupil size, eye muscles. It controls the reflexes of eye muscles like pupil size, then shape of the lens. Okay. Not only that, it also controls the reflexes like when you hear your name called loudly in a crowd, your ears or your head turn to that direction. Your ears zone in that direction, zero in that direction. So this reflex action is controlled by midbrain. So midbrain controls the reflex actions of eyes and ears in auditory and visual stimuli, due to auditory and visual stimuli. Okay. Not only that, it also passes information from forebrain to the hindbrain. That means it also plays a role in masses coordination. Okay? Now the hindbrain. The hindbrain has three parts. So it includes cerebellum, it includes pons, and it also includes medulla oblongata. You can see this part is the cerebellum, this part is the pons, and this part is medulla oblongata, which is connected with the spinal cord. Now, let's start. The cerebellum located at the back of your brain, below the cerebrum, at the back of your brain is cerebellum, this part. Now, this part controls the balance of your body, posture, and muscle coordination. That means this is the part that helps you walk straight, ride a cycle, catch a cricket ball. In one sentence, it is the part that keeps your movement smooth and coordinated. Understood? Okay, let's move on. Now, next we have pons. Pons is located just above the medulla oblongata. This is the region, pons. Now, pons literally means bridge, and that's what it does. It connects the different parts of the brain, okay? And it controls the facial muscle movement and breathing rhythm. Now, the last is medulla oblongata, the life support machine. Why? Because it controls all the involuntary action like heartbeat, breathing, then let's say blood pressure, digestion. Not only that, it also controls reflexes like vomiting and swallowing, and also saliva secretion. Now, this medulla oblongata is present at the lower region of the brain, here below the pons, and it extends to spinal cord. That means spinal cord is connected with the medulla oblongata region of the brain. Now, we have understood all the parts of the human brain and their different roles. And with this, we have completed the nervous system part of the control and coordination, and it is time to move on to the next system, the endocrine system. The endocrine system. The endocrine system has a group of endocrine glands that release hormones directly into the blood, and the hormone regulate various bodily functions. Now, here I want to ask you something. If we already have nervous system for control and coordination, why do we need hormones or why do we need endocrine system? You see, the nervous system is like an instant messaging system, like a telephone call, fast, direct, and instant and urgent. But what if the body wants to send a long lasting message? You see, some of the bodily functions don't require instant action, like growth that happens over years, secondary sexual features development during puberty that also takes years, mood regulation that happens over days, or how your body uses food, the metabolism. All this require time. That means these all are functions that require time, a long lasting effect. And that's where the endocrine system comes in. It releases hormone. Now, what are hormones? Hormones are chemical messengers directly released into the blood. And what they do, they are transported to their target site and they bring over changes like growth, mood regulation, sleep, stress, then sexual features development, even reproduction. So, what we understand from this is that the nervous system is like the build system of a school for instant action, whereas the endocrine system is like the timetable for a long-term planning. Understood? So the body uses nervous system for short-term jobs and the endocrine system for long-term jobs. Now let's get to know the different endocrine glands of our body. First, we have hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is located here in the lower region of the brain, just above pituitary gland. The hypothalamus secrete releasing hormone and inhibiting hormone. Now, below the hypothalamus is pituitary gland. The pituitary gland secrete various hormones. One of them is growth hormone. We are mainly going to focus on the growth hormone, but pituitary gland also secretes hormones like thyroid stimulating hormone, follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone. Next, located at the front of the neck is the thyroid gland. The thyroid gland secretes thyroxine hormone. At the back of the thyroid, there are four dots. You can see these dots right here, the four dots. These dots actually are parathyroid gland. Okay, we have completed this. So parathyroid gland. The parathyroid gland secretes parathyroid hormone or PTH in short. Below that, at the sternum or our breastbone is thymus gland. The thymus gland secrete thymosin hormone. At the top of the kidneys, like two hats, are adrenal glands. You can see here the adrenal gland. The adrenal gland secrete adrenaline hormone. At the back of the stomach is pancreas. The pancreas secrete insulin. Pancreas also secrete glucagon. We'll talk about it in a moment. All right. The next is testes. The testes are present in the scrotum of male. The testes secrete testosterone. Hormone. At the lower abdomen of female are two ovaries. The ovaries secrete two hormones. It's right here. One of them is estrogen. Another one is progesterone. So these are the hormones secreted by different endocrine glands of our body. Now, why do we have to learn about this hormone? You see, the various functions of the body like growth, mood, sleep, stress, reproduction, then various puberty features development characteristic that you develop during puberty, all of it are controlled by hormones. So if you know what role they play in our body, you will know about your own body. So let's understand what role the various hormones secreted by the various endocrine glands play. Okay. The first one is releasing hormone secreted by hypothalamus. The releasing hormone, okay, let me change the ink. The releasing hormone play the role of stimulating the secretion of pituitary gland. Suppose your body has low amount of growth hormone, then the hypothalamus stimulates the pituitary gland to release growth hormone. Clear? So we understood that the releasing hormone stimulates the pituitary gland to release specific hormones. The hypothalamus also controls your emotion, the temperature of the body, stress, hunger. Remember that. It also connects the endocrine system with the nervous system. Below hypothalamus is pituitary gland, and pituitary gland release growth hormone. Now, it controls your height and growth of your body, growth of various organs. Now, one thing you have to remember, if your body, if the pituitary gland release less growth hormone, then that might lead to dwarfism. And if the body release too much growth hormone, it will lead to gigantism. I'm going to write here. Next is thyroxine. Thyroxine hormone regulates the metabolism of fat, protein, and carbohydrate in your body. It means that how your body uses food to produce energy. Now, to produce thyroxine, our body requires iodine. And if your body has less amount of iodine, then the thyroid production will be thyroxine production will be very less. So the thyroid gland might try to compensate, and in that process it might swell up and form a visible lump that we know as goiter. So iodized salt. That's why it is so important. Next is parathyroid hormone. The parathyroid hormone increases the calcium and phosphate level in the blood. Remember that, which is required for the bone development and all. Next is thymosin. The thymosin is secreted by the thymus gland, and it is very active in children because it develops and matures the T cells or T lymphocytes, which is required for immunity development. Okay. And during adult, when you become adult, the thymus gland shrinks and becomes very small. The next is insulin secreted by pancreas. It lowers the sugar level of blood or glucose level of blood. You see, if less amount of insulin is secreted by the blood, then it might lead to diabetes. The blood sugar level will rise up, and high amount of sugar in blood means diabetes. So we have to remember that. And that's why the diabetic patients are injected with the insulin injection, control their sugar level in blood. Next is adrenaline secreted by adrenal gland. The adrenaline hormone is also known as the emergency hormone or fight or flight hormone. It activates when you are stressed, you are excited, or when you feel fear. What it does actually, it increases your heartbeat, it increases your breathing, and also it increases the blood flow towards your muscle. So it makes you ready for the stressful situation. It's like your superhero mode, though temporarily. The next is testosterone released by the testes. Now, testosterone hormone brings about the secondary sexual features in male during puberty, like growth of facial hair, then change in voice, muscle development, then sperm production, etc. Next is estrogen. The estrogen hormone is released by ovaries. Now, similar to the male, the estrogen hormone develops secondary sexual features during puberty in female, but in female, like development of breast enlargement, then features like change in voice, then broadening of hip. Okay, it also regulates the menstrual cycle. The last one is progesterone, also released by the ovaries. It regulates the menstrual cycle and it maintains or supports the pregnancy. So with this, we have covered up the different roles of hormone. Now, what if your body releases a certain hormone a little bit more or less? You see, we have seen that if any hormone is secreted in less amount or more amount, it might lead to defects, various disabilities. So our body needs to secrete the hormone in precise amount, with precise timing. Clear? And how it does that? You see, our body has a monitoring system, built-in monitoring system. It's like the thermostat of a AC. Let's understand. If you turn on a AC, let's say at 25 degrees Celsius, okay? Now, do you keep turning it on and off every 5 minutes? No, right? The AC has a thermostat. It self-adjusts. Like when the temperature falls below 25 degrees Celsius, the AC stops. Or if the temperature rises up, the AC starts again. And your body has a similar system. Whenever something becomes high or something is high and low in the body senses it and sends a message to release or stop secretion of certain hormone. And that mechanism that controls or maintains the balance of hormone, temperature, water level in the body is known as feedback mechanism. It's like your body's monitoring system, self-monitoring system or auto-monitoring system. Let's understand with the help of some example. You see, suppose you eat a chocolate bar. Now, when you eat chocolate or you eat any food, your sugar level in the blood rises up. Now, so here you eat a chocolate and the blood sugar level increases. Now, you see, the increased blood sugar level is not good for health. So, the pancreas detects the high amount of sugar in the blood and release insulin. Now, the insulin stimulates the cell, or tells the cell to take more glucose or sugar from the blood. So, the insulin tells the body cells to absorb the sugar. Now, as the cell take in glucose from the blood sugar level returns to normal. Now, you see, the pancreas cannot keep on secreting insulin, otherwise, the sugar level will fall way below, right? And that's not normal. So, now, once the blood sugar level becomes normal, the body again senses it, and the pancreas stops releasing insulin. And that's how the feedback mechanism works. Now, I hope you understood this part. And with this, we have finished the control and coordination part of animal. Now, next we are going to learn the control and coordination in plants. Let's break it down step by step. You see, the control and coordination in plant is mainly done by hormones, which are also known as phytohormones. You see, most of the time we think plants are still passive, but this is so wrong. Plants are also active. They also respond to the environmental changes or stimuli. Like we have seen, the touch me not folding its leaf, right? But not only that, the plant also respond to light, gravity, touch, water, various environmental factors through growth movement, which are also known as tropic movement. We will learn about them in a moment. But not only that, they also produce quick responses. Plant also show quick responses, like opening and closing of the flower of dandelion, right? It opens in the bright light and closes in the dark light. So whenever the brightness, whenever the day starts, the dandelion flower petal open, and when it becomes dark, it closes. And touch-me-not plant falls asleep. Now, these are not growth movement; these are known as nastic movement. We will go through it one by one in the next slide. Let's just come back and focus in the phytohormone. But before we talk about phytohormone, let me tell you how plants show response. You see, plant have cells that can sense touch and gravity. Plant uses water movement and growth pattern to show response. They don't have brain, spinal cord. That's why the control and coordination in plant is comparatively slower than the animal, but they do respond. Now let's understand the different phytohormone secreted by different parts of plant and what role they play. The first one is auxin. The auxin is a hormone. We can call it as a plant's directional development hormone or directional growth hormone. They are present mainly in the tip of root and shoot. What it does actually, it elongates the cell, means it makes the plant cell longer, and also controls the phototropism or the growth of the plant towards light. And it also controls the growth of stem. The main role is cell elongation, making the cell longer. The next is gibberellin. The gibberellin is important for the growth of stem. They make the stem longer. They germinate the seed. Okay. So, and that means they also play a role in breaking the dormancy, and they also play a role in flowering. The gibberellin is mainly used to make the plant bigger. Okay. Now, cytokinin. This is the hormone that is sprayed on the flowering plant, the plant that are used cell in the flower shop to keep the plant younger for a longer time. Let's understand how. The cytokinin promotes cell division. That means they are present mainly in the root, fruit, or seed. So it promotes cell division. Now, not only that, they delays aging. They delay aging. Okay, this hormone delays aging. So, if we spray a plant with cytokinin, it will keep the plant younger for a longer time. Now, next is abscisic acid or ABA. The abscisic acid is opposite. It inhibits the growth. The auxin, gibberellin, and cytokinin we saw it promotes the growth, whereas the abscisic acid it inhibits the growth. Now, this hormone is like a brake paddle for the plants. It's like a stress hormone. You see, whenever there is a stressful situation, like if the water level is low, the abscisic acid closes the stomata and stops the transpiration. So they stop the water loss through transpiration. Not only that, if the favorable conditions are not present, then it also stops the seed from germinating, which obviously promotes the seed dormancy, So the abscisic acid inhibit growth and they also cause the wilting of leaves. Remember that. Next, we have ethylene. Now, this is the only gaseous hormone in plant. This ethylene is very interesting. Have you ever seen that a ripe banana kept in a bag full of other unripe fruits make them ripen very fast? Well, that's because the ripe banana release ethylene. And what it does actually, it helps in ripening of fruit. And it also promotes leaf fall and flower aging or aging in flower. Now with this, we have finished the different role of different hormones in plant. Now let's move on and understand the different responses shown by different plants. Now, plants show response in two ways. Our plants show response by two type of movements: tropic movement and nastic movement. Let's understand the tropic movements first. The tropic movement is the growth of plant parts towards or away from stimulus. So it can be towards the stimulus or it can be away from the stimulus. So depending on that, the tropic movement can be two types: positive or negative. Now understand this. If the growth movement happens towards the stimulus, then it's positive for tropism, and if the growth movement happens away from the stimulus, then it is negative tropism or negative tropic movement. The tropism in plant is of five types. Let's understand. If a plant part grows towards the sunlight or away from the sunlight, then that growth movement is known as phototropism. You see the shoot grow towards the sunlight, so it shows positive phototropism, whereas the root grow opposite, grow away from the sunlight towards the ground, towards the gravity. So it shows negative phototropism. Now you see a bending of a potted plant kept near a window slowly bends towards the light. Now this is very important. Now why does the plant bend toward the light? Let's understand. We have learned that the plant grow towards the light, right? Now plants should grow towards the light due to auxin, hormone auxin. Let's understand. You see, when the sun falls perpendicularly on a plant, the auxin molecules are distributed evenly throughout the stem. But if the light falls on the one side of the plant, then the auxin move to the opposite side, to the shady side. Okay, this is the shady side. Now, as auxin accumulates in this region, the shady side, the cells present in this region elongate faster or become longer very fast. Let's write cell elongation. So as the cell elongate, that means the cells are growing longer, faster compared to this region, the region where the light is falling. And for this, the stem slowly bends towards the light. Okay, now we have understood why stem bends towards the light. Next is geotropism. Whenever a plant part grows away or towards gravity, stimulus gravity, then this growth movement is known as geotropism. It also can be positive and negative. You see the shoot grow away from the gravity, so they show negative geotropism, whereas the roots grow towards the gravity and it shows positive geotropism. One of the interesting thing you will see, if you keep a plant like this in one side, okay, even in the dark, you will see the root still finds the way to grow downwards towards the gravity and should always grow upward towards the sunlight. Next, we have hydrotropism. The hydrotropism is the growth movement of plant part towards the stimulus or away from the stimulus water. Next, we have chemotropism. The chemotropism is the growth movement of plant parts towards any chemical. You see the pollen grain, when they get dusted on the stigma of a carpel, means after pollination, it starts forming a pollen tube, and this pollen tube grows towards ovule. And this is due to the chemical, the sugary substance released by the style and stigma of the carpel. So this is an example of chemotropism. The last one is thigmotropism. Have you ever seen a climber growing and coiling its tendril around a strong support? And that's thigmotropism. So here the stimulus is touch. Clear? Whenever a plant part grows towards a strong support and coil around it, that's known as thigmotropism. Now here the stimulus is touch, and the folding of touch me not plant's leaf, or in this case also the stimulus is touch, but they are not same. It is a growth movement and this is a nastic movement. There is no growth happening here. Let's understand. So we have understood tropic movement. Now the last one is nastic movement. You see, nastic movements means, remember, no direction. Whenever a plant shows a response, especially quick response, due to any stimulus, and this response direction is not dependent on the direction of the stimulus. That means it is not towards the stimulus or away from the stimulus. Okay. You see, if you touch a touch me not plant's leaf, no matter you from which direction you touch, up, down, left, right, the leaf always fold in the same direction. Clear? Now, there are other examples of nastic movements. The closing and opening of the flower petal of dandelion flower in bright light and in dark is an example of nastic movement. Now let's understand why this leaf actually fold. You see, at the base of the touch-me-not plant's leaf, there is a special structure which is known as pulvini or pulvinus. Now this pulvinus cell is filled with water. Now whenever you touch the leaf, this region, water moves from the cells, one half of the pulvinus cells to the other half. So the pulvinus, now remember the water move out. From here, the water move out. Water moves out. Now, as the water moves out, the pulvinus loses its firmness. Now, as the pulvinus or pulvini loses firmness, this causes the leaf to fold. Now, after 20 to 30 minutes, the water again returns back to the pulvinus and the pulvinus gains firmness and the leaf again open up. Okay, with this, we have finished one of the most important chapter of 10th science. And if you stayed with me till now and watched the whole video, I want you to say this. You didn't just memorize nerves, hormones, brain, spinal cord. You have learned how life communicates with itself. You have learned how brain takes split-second decision and how heart beats without your permission and how a touch me not opens and closes its lid. Okay? Or folds its lid. Now, if this video has helped you, I want you to give it a like and share with a friend who needs clarity. And always learn the smart way. Stay curious and be smart. Now, this is Kaushik Sharma signing off. I will see you in the next video.